morning we are in a early JK with a 6-liter, a combination that we've done a ton of times before. I would call this Jeep an expedition Jeep. It's heavy, it's got a lot of stuff on it, roll cages, exoskeleton thing. And one thing to note on this Jeep is the grille. It's pretty much blocked by the large hoop and the winch that isn't sunk, and I definitely noticed that on the trip to Utah. Going up the grades, I had to turn the AC off to not go over 230 degrees. Once he corrects that, he'll be fine. We've done a ton of videos on the 6-liter and early JKs, so today I want to talk about money, because that's what's important to all of us, regardless of what kind of build you want. I have a advanced degree in business finance, and my personal opinion is the government has everything screwed up. The supply chain is screwed up, the labor market is screwed up. In fact, I hear even the OE manufacturers are suffering. GM, from what I understand, is not even offering the L87 in some of their models right now until they can get them back in inventory. And some of the advanced motors are not shipping with some of the advanced features like dynamic fuel management and stop-start because they can't get the parts or the chips to support those features. So all of us are in the same boat. And when I say all of us, I can hear my competitors and my customers all complaining about this. This just isn't unique to our situation. Does that mean you can't get a swap? No, far from it. You can get a swap. But what we're finding is, in the old days, we used to be able to pick what engines we wanted to use. Now the engines are kind of picking us. We just have to get whatever's available. I've always said that it doesn't really matter what engine you get. The V8 GM engines are all excellent. Yes, they have some differences, but I don't think you'll be disappointed with pretty much anything you get versus the V6. We used to give an estimate that was valid for 90 days. Now our estimates are good for 2 weeks. Because the market is changing so rapidly, parts pricing and availability changes on a daily basis. For example, at the beginning of the year, GM added a $1,500 core to the 10L80 transmission. And then they added another $1,500 just recently. They increased the price of the 10L80 transmission $3,000. And we're not the only ones in that boat. Pretty much everybody is. So the way it works with us is once you get that estimate and you look it over and you say it looks good, get your deposit in. The 50% deposit pretty much pays for the parts. So we buy the parts and get them into the shop so that you're locked in. Now we have run into situations we bought the parts and then the supplier comes back to us and says, oh, they're not available anymore, GM didn't ship them. And then we, of course, try to work through that. But the best case scenario is you get your money in, we get the engine and transmission in the shop, and then we go from there. So starting with the LT1, which I consider top of the pile, you're looking about $36,500 for a full build, including a new 10-speed GM transmission. And like I said, the 10-speed transmission just went up $3,000, and the LT1 went up $500 and $400, something like that. There was a couple of increases this year. So you're looking about $36,000 to $37,000 for the LT1. And if you do choose to go with a used transmission, that will knock a couple thousand off. We were lucky enough to get a bunch of L86s. The L86 is virtually identical to the LT1. It has most of the same parts. It does run a vacuum pump for the brakes, which I personally like. It has a huge intake on it, but what we do is we put the LT1 intake on it, so it looks virtually identical to the LT1. And in my opinion, it runs very, very similar to the LT1. Some guys say they can notice the difference, but I don't. So the L86 with a new transmission is going to run you about 35 grand. And guys, that's out the door. That doesn't mean we're going to keep adding stuff on. There are a couple of things, mainly drive shafts and transportation that we'll talk about, but we're not like some of the other shops where we're going to tack on this and, oh, you want a header that, and you're out the door at 40 grand. This is pretty much out the door if you have a clean JK and it's relatively stock. And what I mean by that is we get some of them in the shop that have weld-on rock rails, dual S-pods, cameras, rock lights, just a bunch of stuff that's wrong, suspension that's all wobbly. And if we're going to spend more time on the interferences than we are on the build, then of course we got to charge you for that. So these prices are assuming you have a relatively clean JK. If you got full skids and welders and everything else on your JK, then there might be some additional charges. So the L86, which is new by the way, and a new 10-speed is going to run you about 35 grand. If you do want to go with a used transmission, and we've had very good luck with the 10-speeds, there's a lot of them out there and they're relatively low miles, then you're looking about 33 grand. The L82, boy, that engine has really gone up in price. The L83, they were cranking them out, and then they stopped. Then the L82 came out. And along with the other parts that have gone up in price, you got to remember, it's not just the engines that have gone up in price. Everything, whether it's water pumps, harmonic balancers, hoses, everything has gone up. So you're looking about 33 grand for a full L82 build. That's a 5.3 LT with a new 10-speed. And again, if you want to go with a used transmission, you're looking at about 31 grand. The LS L96 6-liter, which has really become the Expedition motor, is readily available, and that's going to set you back about $29,000, and that's for a new engine and a used transmission. The availability of the LS3 is still a little bit spotty, but it does appear they keep trickling through. You're going to be talking about 30 grand for an LS3, and again, that's going to be for a used 6L80. The 6L80 is available new. The price is kind of crazy from GM, remanufactured. I think it's $4,500, maybe $5,000. So if you want the new transmission, it is available, but I can tell you that we've had really, really good luck with the used transmissions. It's a good value. So those are the main engines that we have available now, and that may change. But I wanted to give you an update because things are just changing so rapidly in the engine conversion world. The good news is the LTs are available. GM's cranking them out. There is no gloom and doom on the horizon like the Hemi, as far as I know. I know everybody's saying they're going to go electric and all that, but from what I see, GM pretty much rules the full-size SUV market. If you look at the Escalades and the Yukons, just go down the highway, you see so many of these things, and they require these bigger engines. The hybrids and the electric motors have just never really been successful in those vehicles. So it does look like there's a bright future for the V8 LT for at least a while, and you might want to take advantage of that. Now, my prediction is when the government straightens their act out, things will get better. Although the administration is saying just get used to the inflation and the higher prices because that's where it should be. I don't agree with that. I think prices are artificially inflated, just like the housing market, and I think things will go back to normal, and hopefully the factories will start cranking engines out again. Now, we hear some of the big companies are gouging and taking advantage of the market, and that may be true, but you got to remember that whether it's Chrysler, Ford, GM, they're subject to the same silliness that we are, whether it's COVID restrictions, supply chain, and with all the international chaos that's going on, getting parts like chips, computer components are outsourced overseas, so you can see that they're having a similar issue to us. I do want to mention that not only my competitors, but our vendors, whether it's Advanced Adapters or Genrite, are out months and months, just like we are. So if you want to do a swap with us, you have to be patient. Hopefully your Jeep is on the road because we're out months and months. I don't know exactly how far out we are, but I do know that we have like 20 or 25 in-house builds, and that doesn't include the number of kits. So if you're patient, you will get your V8 conversion, and I can tell you it is awesome. It is definitely worth the wait. If you're in a hurry or you can't wait, there's other options out there. You can always sell your JK or go with another engine conversion. And I do apologize we're so far behind, but I do think we've hit the bottom of the valley. We are bringing in more labor. We are seeing more parts coming through, more engines available. So I think there's light at the end of the tunnel. I think we're gonna start seeing production increase and that lead time get shorter and shorter. The office did want me to mention two of the add-ons that a lot of guys don't think of, but is a cost. One is transportation. Now, if you bring your Jeep to us, that's fine. If you want to ship it to us, then there's a transportation cost. We don't ship for free. As you can imagine, the cost of shipping today has gone up just like everything else. If you're in California, Arizona, we do a lot of West Coast builds. The cost isn't a whole lot. It's well under $1,000, $500, $600. If you're in the East Coast, it used to be about $1,000. Now I think we're pushing $1,500. And a lot of it depends where you're at. If you're way out in the boonies where there is no interstate, then a truck has to go out and get it. That's going to increase the cost significantly. I also want to mention with transportation, if you want to pick your Jeep up, you are subject to Nevada sales tax. It is considered a Nevada sale. Just like if you went to McCarran Airport, you flew in, you bought a stick of gum, you're going to pay tax on that stick of gum because you took delivery on it in Nevada. So if you ship the Jeep out of Nevada, then it's not considered a Nevada sale and there's no sales tax. So keep that in mind. The final thing I think I'll mention is the drive shafts. A lot of times we can reuse your drive shafts. If you got the RZEPAs, I highly recommend you ditch them and just get some quality drive shafts. We work with Adams driveline here in town. I've worked with James and Johnny and Debbie and those guys for, gee, I want to say 20 years, maybe longer. They use top-notch components, Spicer parts. From what Johnny and James tell me, they don't use the Chinese parts, and the failure rate in these Adams shafts is extremely low. It used to be $1,000 for a set of shafts years ago. Now I think it's $1,295. That would be for a 1350 rear, front and rear joint, and a 1350 front joint at the flange on the axle, and a 1310 CV at the top. And you say, why a 13 CV at the top of the front shaft? It's for transmission clearance. And this holds true for the Hemi and the V6 JK also. When you stuff that front axle all the way up, it shoves the drive shaft over to the passenger side, and a large CV like a 1350 or 1410 can hit the transmission pan. In fact, I see a lot of JKs with 3-inch lifts, 4-inch lifts, where the rubber boot is torn on the Zeppa shaft because it's hitting the transmission pan. So we run a 1310 up top. We've never had a problem. Everything else is a 1350. It's all quality, balanced. So you might as well tack on another $1,300 if you want to do it right. If you have shafts already, we have no problem rebuilding those or resizing them. We do that all the time. In fact, I'd say we probably do that in about half of our builds. I've seen the price of resizing go anywhere from $200 on a good set of shafts to the shafts are junk. Everything is worn out, the tube is bent, and we just got to start from scratch. But the average one, I'd say, probably runs about 500 bucks, 400 to 500 bucks. So budget that. So that's it. We don't play games. When we give you a price, we pretty much stick to it, unless you have a lot of interferences like we discussed, and we'll tell you that up front. Interferences are also going to take more time. I get guys with Expedition Jeeps that have everything out of the Quadratec catalog installed and installed improperly, and they're in a big hurry to get the vehicle back in a couple of weeks. And the reality is we just can't work that way, because we have guys in line, and if you have a massive amount of interferences, we're just going to take more time with that Jeep and be fair to everybody else. I will say that we're very fair about time versus money. So if you say, well, take your time with it, we will definitely lower the cost of the interferences. But if you're in a hurry and you have a ton of interferences, then you're just going to have to pay for it. I would like to say some customers offer to pull some of the stuff off of their Jeep, which is generous. If they have full skid plates or roof racks welded to the bumper and all that, they'll pull them off so that the conversion is easier for us, and we always do appreciate that. I recently mentioned about any issues with your Jeep. We get Jeeps come in, and some of them don't run. In fact, I just did a test drive on one that hadn't run in 3 years. And whatever problems you have with your Jeep prior to the conversion, you're probably going to have after the conversion. So if you got suspension that's wobbly, or pulling to one side, or an ABS light on, or clicking when you come to a stop, just tell us. Write a little bullet point list and put it in the front seat, because when I get it on the road, I'm going to notice all that stuff, and then if you want us to address it, we'll address it. But having that knowledge up front, and my guys do a test drive on every Jeep that comes in if they run, but we've been getting a lot of Jeeps that don't run, so we can't do a test drive and document those things. Little things we usually fix for free. We're not going to charge you for a $10 part. Bigger things like broken airbags, and for some reason we've been seeing a lot of ABS module issues. Of course we're going to charge you for it, but we're going to be very fair about it. I just had a couple of Jeeps come in that are so clean, they look like they're right off the showroom floor. And we have done a lot of new Jeeps that get purchased and sent right to us. These Jeeps are clean as a whistle, never been modified, even have stock air filters in them. And those bills go really quick. So that is the state of the Motec engine conversion world as of September 2022. It will be interesting to see where we're at in 2023 at this time, because allegedly the Hemi is going to be dropped. Hopefully a lot of these supply chain issues will be resolved. We're looking forward to something happening in government, whether it's a change of parties or leadership, but really I think the fundamental cause of all the issues is bad decisions being made by government. So if some good decisions start getting made and all the factors like labor and supply chain get sorted, then we might be in a much better position a year from now. In the meantime, we're going to take this Expedition JK up to the mountain with this 6-liter, and we will see you shortly.